So who we have with us tonight is the one and only Skip from Naptown, Indianapolis. How has the last year been through the pandemic, as a creative for creation, and how has that affected your, not only just your life in general, but also maybe how you tackle the world as a rapper, MC, and everything that belongs with it?
A lot of people know, but I work in the school system on my free time. And when the pandemic hit, that definitely was out of the question, and it still is to this day. So I've had a lot of free time to work on music, And I definitely took advantage of that. I've never been the type to just, just sit back and sit in sorrow, about stuff going on. I'm gonna make the best of whatever I got. So this is actually King of Indiana is my third album I've dropped since the pandemic started, about to drop. So yeah, I'm staying busy, man, staying active, staying productive, trying to keep my creative juices flowing, man, and not lose that momentum, So The pandemic has been good to me, despite the obvious, downsides, to everything going on.
I saw that you were working on the project. Was it with Shawnee D and Speed, I think? Was that like about 6-7 months ago?
Shawnee D.
Almost a year ago.
Shawnee D, Jason Bain, and Top Speed, yep.
Yeah,
I did a collaboration album with the homie 𝗡𝗲𝐿. He's a Nigerian-born artist, but he lives in the city. We dropped that September. So July and September, I released albums. And I wanted to just put a little time into King of Indiana, So from December, I'm saying time. Some people take years to make an album. We did this album, I think, in a month and a half, 2 months. That's long for me. You know what I mean? So yeah, I wanted to put a little time into this one and try to switch the style up, switch the sound up a little bit. You know what I mean?
You said you worked in the school system, like part-time type thing. How long have you been doing that?
It's been about 5 to 6 years. I started off in Warren Township, and I'm still employed with Warren Township, but I've been going to Indiana Math and Science Academy North to help out over there. So yeah.
What got you into doing that?
Initially, I just wanted to find a job that was really convenient, for what I got going on. And what I'm doing there, I literally make my own schedule. I only have to work 5 days a year. You know what I mean? I can, as long as I work 5 days a year, I'm still employed. You know what I mean? So it was just really convenient for my music career. You know what I mean? I could work a full week, or I could work 1 week per month, whatever I want to do. So
I'd like to know a little bit more about you in general, man. You're from Indianapolis, Naptown, right? I'm guessing.
Yes, sir. Born and raised.
What side of town did you grow up on?
I grew up on the east side, and in my teenage years, we moved to the far east side, but mainly the east side my whole life.
What was it like growing up in Indianapolis, for you?
Man, it's crazy how different the east side and the far east side is, or was even then, still is to this day. But on the regular east side, it was like really, really poverty stricken, man. Like crime rate out of this world. You know what I mean? In my neighborhood specifically, like drug addicts everywhere, prostitutes everywhere. People make fun of my neighborhood that I grew up in just for being like a real dusty neighborhood. You know what I mean? It was really bad around there. So when I moved to the far east side, things were a little better, but it was still just, I feel like people on the far east side got a lot more to prove. So it's kind of a little more dangerous, kind of, just as far as like kids and, trying to maintain a certain image. So regardless, east side and far east side, it was rough. You know what I mean? And it kind of molded me into the kind of person who always stood on something, and always make sure I took care of myself, watch my back, watch my buddies' backs, my family's back, you know what I mean? So some people take that kind of background and they twist it into something for the worst, but I tried to twist it into something for the best for me.
Okay. Do you have any siblings?
Yeah, I got a big brother and a little brother.
When you were growing up, did you have, how was your path into music? What about the early days of Skip? Like, what type of music did you love, and what kind of got you into loving music?
My mom, she was really into, if it wasn't 90s R&B, it was Tupac, Scarface, Mystical, and her favorite of all time, Too Short. She loved them. That's all I heard all day, every day. My stepdad used to play a lot of Notorious B.I.G., so I was, exposed to that also. But the first rap, as far as I can remember, the first rap I wrote was in 6th grade. I had a buddy who lived around the corner from me. He had a little studio set up in his spot. And when I told him I wanted to rap, or I was writing raps, he didn't take me serious, you know what I mean? So he didn't even acknowledge me as a rapper. He just told me to go up in the room and you'll figure it out. Just go ahead and record yourself. And I was always a bright kid. Like I've always been really good with electronics and finding my way around that kind of stuff. So I went up there and I figured it out, you know what I mean? And I recorded a song and I did it like I did it before or something. And when he came back home and he saw me up there working, he listened, he like, oh, I thought you was about to come up here and, waste your time. He said, this is decent, man. You know what I mean? Back then my name was B-Dub. Because my name started with a B, I got to come up with the most basic thing ever as a little kid.
Right.
But yeah, man, that was the first time I remember writing a rap and recorded a rap, and I couldn't tell you where that recording is to this day. I couldn't tell you where half of my old recordings are, man. I done lost all of them. But yeah, that's how it started, man. I don't know what inspired me to start writing though, man. I don't remember.
It sounded like in that particular instance, you had something to prove right there. Man,
I always feel like I got something to prove, man. Always. It might have started as an outlet though, man, because I was telling my therapist, like, growing up, we didn't really get much affection. It wasn't really many conversations had, like we had a real disciplinary mom, and we didn't really talk things out. You know what I mean? It was either a good job or a whooping. So I never really learned how to communicate. So stuff I went through, I think it started with me writing it, just writing it down.
So this was 6th grade. You said you went up and recorded yourself. When did you, again, I'm guessing you kept writing at that point in time?
Yeah, once he told me that he was impressed, that really motivated me to keep going. And over the years, man, like in 7th grade, I had I will never forget this moment. It was life-changing for me. 7th grade, I got a rap buddy, my buddy Josh, and my buddy Justin, two guys I'm writing raps with. Those guys never really went through with a rap career, but they were decent in my opinion. But I was in a class and the teacher walked out for a second. I don't remember where he was going, but he just walked out, left us in there in 7th grade, you know what I mean? So I was not doing any work. I was in my rap book, me and my buddy Justin. So these two popular girls, you know what I mean? They want to make fun of little Skip. So they came over and was like, we know you be rapping. Is that what you're doing right now? You rapping? And they snatched my rap book. They started reciting my lyrics, but they did it in the worst way possible. So no matter how good it might have been, they made it sound terrible. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm like, man, this makes me want to be the greatest ever. And my buddy was like, man, if that happened to me, man, I'd be done. I'd be done rapping. And I'm like, nah, man, I just want to get better now. You know what I mean? And I've always been like that with negative situations. It always inspired me. You know what I mean? I don't know where that comes from either, but man, I just wanted to be the greatest after that. And that just drove me to keep writing, keep getting better, keep studying. You know what I mean? And to this day, I'd never forget it.
So I'm guessing that plays a huge part in your life in general, the fact that you take situations and there's different ways to word this, but you kind of take any situation and turn it into motivation to potentially be something that's positive in your life. Where have you seen specifically the fruits of doing that?
I'm so grateful, man. I can name anything, even as far as me being where I am today. I don't know if I would have been as driven if it wasn't for the struggle, man. I really appreciate the struggle. I really do, man. The victories wouldn't feel as good if I didn't have to struggle for them, you know what I mean? So really every aspect, because it's nonstop. I done went through things with this album, you know what I mean? Even to this day, I go through things and some people will get discouraged. Some people will get frustrated, but I'm just like, okay, well, that just means there's some kind of power out there trying to slow me down. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna make sure I come out of this on top. Cause I'm just that I'm a fighter, bro. Like I just really feel like nobody can stop me but me. And I live by that. So when I see somebody trying to, or hear somebody trying to, you know what I mean, knock me off my square, that just make me stand up, poke my chest out and get to it even harder, man.
Right. No, I can relate to that, man. I have a very similar drive to that. I enjoy like proving people wrong. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And it's just always there. It's changed throughout the years, depending on like, I'm a lot more mellow now than I used to be, but I still have that a little bit. Do you think, I know I kind of asked this in a similar way earlier, but where do you think that came from for you?
I think it comes from like never being good enough. I think a lot of it came from basketball. Like I was never good enough to make, I was always almost good enough. You know what I mean? Even to this day, like just always almost good enough. And I think that's where it might have started, you know, even before I even tried out for a team, you know, just in the neighborhood playing basketball. I wouldn't get picked up for a team where I get picked up very last, you know what I mean? So that always like made me want to play better or, you know, practice on my game a lot more. And I think it just translated, you know what I mean, to the music. Just having people look at me as like a person who's wasting his time, stuff like that, you know what I mean? I think that's where it comes from. And also having family who just refuse to support me, you know, until I really start making a name for myself. And now they want to jump on the bandwagon, stuff like that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I understand that as well. All those things. So you were little when you were little.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm tall, right? I'm 6'2", 6'3", but I was 5'3" until I was like a freshman in high school, and then I grew like a foot. So, and I used to hoop quite a bit too. So I can relate to being pretty. I was always really pretty decent at basketball, man, but I was just never quite good enough. And it was a lot of times I felt because I was smaller than everybody else. But then I grew, and then I became kind of a monster in a way, because I got really long ass arms. But now I'm horrible.
That's what's up, though.
No, I'm trash.
Nah,
now,
man, it never leaves, man. It never goes anywhere. You just gotta get a couple runs in. It'll be right back.
You know what it is though? Like, it's I mean, like the knowledge of everything and how to move and how to do things is always there, but the fundamentals, like,
yeah, man,
I went and played with, rest in peace, to Indiana Jones, because probably 2 years ago, I went to some place in Fountain Square to hoop with where he was at and a couple other people. And it was the first time that I stepped on the court in probably, man, like 4 or 5 years, which is a long time. And up and down the court like 2 or 3 times, when I used to be able to run up and down, not even get tired in my 20s. And then now to the point to where like I go up and down one time and think that I'm having like I'm having a heart attack. Like I need to stop. It's like, it's a weird thing getting older, and your body and your, is not, one, I haven't stayed active, but like losing skills that I knew that I used to have. Like I am so trash these days, but I bought a basketball. I did buy a basketball, man. And, maybe I'm going to go practice by myself and before I go join some, gyms or anything, but,
yeah, man, it don't take nothing but about 2-3 weeks of you just playing, man. You'll get it right back. Trust me. Cardio and all.
You still play?
At least somewhat. Oh yeah, I play like 3 or 4 times a week.
Nice.
When I have the time, at least. But yeah, I try to get in the gym at least 3 times a week.
Yeah, I definitely miss it. I definitely miss it quite a bit.
Major in the chat, he talking about you, man. Your Major ball? Can you ball Major, man?
So Major used to hoop in high school. He played on the basketball team.
Nice.
He was good. He was good. I'll give it to him. I always troll him whenever I play now. He was doing he did this thing for Red Bull in Carmel where he was hosting, and I went out and I was shooting straight rainbow shots just to kind of mess around with him. And so he always brings that up. But yeah. Speak on how important kind of this drive that you have stemming from not being good enough. But is that drive the same or similar to the drive of wanting to be successful and understanding like how hard you have to work, or is it something different in there?
Yeah, I feel like it's the same drive because I mean, back then I was fighting to be respected. And then once you get respect, now you fighting to be a star. You know what I mean? And I couldn't tell you how many times I've heard no from blogs, playlist curators, labels, you know what I mean? So
right.
When it was the kids and peers telling me no, you know, I rose above that. Now it's the labels and such telling me no. Now I'm trying to rise above that. So I feel like it's the same drive, of course, from a more mature place.
I think it's a unique position that you have to, and it's not even a position, just a character trait that you have of turning almost everything into a positive in the way that you may look at negative things. You mentioned therapists as well. Me and my friends and even us on the show, we've talked about, mental health quite a bit and stuff relating to that. How has your journey becoming an adult, tackling maybe mental health and maybe untucking trauma that maybe you've went through and stuff like that, how has that affected, or is that kind of part of the attitude that you have as well in turning things into positives in that aspect? Or has it always been there? Or
adult life has been something else. So before I even graduated high school, I was homeless. Like 3 weeks before graduation. As soon as I got out of high school, I had to go find a job. Like I was out there in the streets, like seriously. So I went and worked at the post office for about 4 months. Started college at Ivy Tech. I went to orientation, dropped out. Couldn't do it. So I quit the job and I quit school the same day. I took my last check. I bought studio equipment, you know what I mean? And that's where I was like, okay, I'm getting back to the Skip I know, you know what I mean? And then my best friend died, you know what I mean? I was living with him. He was homeless with me. We're living out his car. Now he's gone. You know what I mean? All this stuff while I'm trying to pursue something as a young adult. You know what I mean? And that just brought a beast out of me. It really did. It took my drive to a whole different level. It took my focus to a whole different level. And this was the part of my life where I couldn't find a positive in nothing. I was extremely negative minded, man. All the years of me turning negatives into positives, and the years of 2010 and 2011, I could not find nothing positive to dwell on, and I couldn't turn a negative into a positive. So this is where I start getting my faith together, man. I'm try to be a real spiritual person, man, because I feel like that's what gives me balance. A lot of people go to a lot of different things for balance, but that's my balance, my faith. So, you know, I had to stop for a minute, man, and just like, you know, really grieve my best friend and the countless other people I lost along the way who they may not have been as close as him, but people that I cared about, you know what I mean? So I dealt with a lot of loss as a young adult. And that's when I started getting my stuff together, you know what I mean? And I just got my therapist probably about 6 months ago, you know, because I felt like all the effort I was putting forth to try to be a better person and to try to turn negatives into positives. Like I feel like I was doing it, but I wasn't doing it properly. You know, I wasn't putting away trauma. I was just burying it.
Okay.
I needed to get with somebody who could, like, you know, just talk with me, you know, and guide me. So that's what I ended up doing. To this day, I'm still trying to get rid of some of the stuff in my head. It goes through my head every day, man. Like, it's real ugly up there, you know, but I'm just grateful that I'm able to, on the surface, make things look so easy. That's one thing my mom told me. She like, man, you've been through a lot and you just make it look so easy and genuine. And I'm like, in my head, it don't play out like that. Right. But I know that my actions and my words hold weight for the reputation I've built. So I try to deal with my personal issues on my own time. You know, I try to be some kind of living example, and it comes at a cost, man. You know, people envy me. They think I'm Mr. Goody Two Shoe, but they don't know the half of it, man. All the times I spent in the streets, all the money I made in the streets, all the death I dodged, you know what I mean? Like that stuff I keep secretive because I feel like broadcasting that don't help nothing. It don't help me or nobody else. You know what I mean? So that stuff I just tuck away, man, and just bury it. So I'm working on getting over that, man. It's definitely a steep hill to climb for sure.
Yeah. I would say probably 3 or 4 years ago, maybe a little longer than that. No, it's about 3 or 4 years ago. I finally, for the first time in a long time, actually started addressing trauma that I've had from just from my childhood and stuff, and started kind of mapping out. I guess I gave it the time that I never gave it before. You know, like it's like you said, you kind of hit. You struck an accord with me when you said you kind of just tuck it away and move it to the side, you know, and put the smile on your face, and you try to be as positive as you can, try not to let things affect you. But for the first time in my life, probably when I was about 34, 35, I finally started to like legitimately take the time to figure out why certain things were hurting me the way that they were hurting me, why I would respond certain ways. And it was a very transformational period in my life that I'm happy that I made time for specifically. So that's dope. Do you think this is like a 2-part question. Do you feel like it's therapeutic to write? And also, do you think that when you write out some sort of trauma that it's actually helping you through it, or is it just a kind of a deflection to help you tuck it away?
I feel like talking about any trauma always helps. I'm not sure if it solves anything, but it's good to be heard and to be understood and to know that people relate to it. Whenever I write, it's definitely therapeutic. That's the 2 things, basketball and writing music. Those are 2 things. When I do it, I don't think about nothing outside of it. And it's a great getaway. That's why I do it so much. You know what I mean? I write a lot and I play basketball a lot because when I do that, my mind is free of all negativity. I don't think about none of it. It's a smile on my face. You know what I mean? So I do feel like writing, though, it's like the most therapeutic thing I have. And I don't do it enough, to be honest. I only write when I'm in album mode. Other than that, I never write because I write on the spot. So I have no reason for the way I work. I have no reason to be writing outside of the studio because I ain't writing for nothing, you know? So that's when I go play basketball. But absolutely, I feel like speaking about anything, that's all therapy is. It's just speaking about it. You know what I mean? So the same thing applies to music, in my opinion. You know, when I'm able to say those traumatic things in my music, it helps. Even if nobody does understand it, it's good to just hear it out loud and say it.
Right. When I was going through a lot of this stuff and I was writing a project out, I had kind of a revelation where I felt like, for me personally, even though I felt better after I would write some stuff out, that I also felt that it was kind of a coping mechanism that also allowed me to kind of deflect away from actually addressing these things that I was going through, and rather than actually like address them. And that's kind of why I was curious, you know, kind of if yours was similar than that to me, because most of the people that I talk to, they actually they feel therapeutic about writing and getting stuff off. And I always thought that that's how it was for me, but for some reason I felt like I was doing it almost as an escape, and it was almost like an escapism of sorts. So
I definitely relate to that. You know, you just saying it and you feel like that's all that's necessary, but it's a lot more that's necessary. So I get it for sure.
Yeah.
I actually agree.
What was the point where you're like, I think that I can do this for real? You know, like I kind of see a path for it, to some sort of success, whatever that success means to you.
When I got out of middle school, because in middle school I never garnered a fan base. You know what I mean? I had a couple people who was curious, but I never really amounted to anything. But as soon as that freshman year hit, It probably was the fourth day of school. You know, the few people who I did go to middle school with that also went to the high school, they start talking to other people. You know what I mean? And it was another guy who went to another Warren Township middle school named Woogie. I think y'all might be familiar with Woogie. Maybe
Yeah.
if not, y'all about to learn. So these guys are like, "Hey, we heard you rap. We got a buddy named Woogie from Raymond Park, or I think Stony. He went to one of those schools. They said he rapped too. Now Woogie basically had the same story as me. Like he wrote raps, but he never really took it serious. You know what I mean? But he could rap. So after school, they wanted us to meet in the Commons, which is like, you know, the little area where everybody comes together after school. And I met Woogie, and they was like, "That's your rap battle." So we both shy, but we did it. You know what I mean? Because our buddies was there hyping us up, and we walked away from that rap battle as rap partners. I just met him, and we was like, "Hey, let's do it, man. Like let's start dropping music together. I can feed off you, you can feed off me." And then he introduced me to his Step Pops, and Step Pops was really connected, like in the streets and music. So he had us in the studio no more than a week later. And when we recorded the whole mixtape in one day. It was insane, bro. We did like 12 tracks in one day. And we did that.
That is insane.
It's crazy. And then we put it on CD. We got the CDs pressed up and we sold them. We had to make like $600 a piece in those hallways. We made a lot of money. And that was the moment where I was like, yeah, we about to do this for sure.
Nice.
Because later in high school, we were in video production class, and in video class, they had this CD burner. You could burn like 10 CDs at a time.
Yep.
So as me and Woogie kept dropping music, and the school kept supporting us, not to mention we was on the morning announcements doing raps about being late to class and all kind of crazy stuff, right. Just building that fan base. Didn't even know we was doing it, but we were doing it. But as we're finishing these mixtapes, the teachers are like, "Hey, you can use the CD burner, press up y'all mixtapes, you know, sell them in the hallways." Telling you, man, we made thousands of dollars in that school. And growing up as a little poverty-stricken kid, like that right there was all the confirmation I needed. You know, I could make money off this. You know what I mean? Like I was all for it, man. 100%. That's when I knew it was for me.
Nice. That's a great story. When did you, just so I can kind of gauge your age range and stuff, I don't know how old you are, but you said you were in high school until the late 2010s? When did you graduate high school?
2010, exactly.
Okay.
I'll be 29 on Friday.
Okay. Well, happy birthday.
Saturday, I'm sorry.
So you started young, like as far as like hustling the music. And I mean, when you're talking about getting started rapping in middle school and then pressing CDs up when you're a freshman, that's early.
Yeah. Early. And we were actually decent. We was actually decent rappers, like listening to our old stuff. I was like, hey, we wasn't bad at all, man.
So this was also like, I guess around, I was going to ask you like what you would do for like producers and stuff if you worked with producers back then, but I'm guessing this is like the mixtape era. So were you guys just kind of using stuff like that? And
straight industry instrumentals, man. I don't think we released an original song until I graduated high school. It was all mixtapes. I don't think we did one original song, man.
Wow.
Just remixing everybody's beats. We did make some original music, but when we got done with it, the guy we was working with, he kind of switched the game. We thought it was just everything was, you know, pro bono and all that good stuff. But as soon as we got done and he realized how good the product was, he tried to charge us like crazy. We was like, dude, we're 17, 18 years old. We don't got no money like that. You know what I mean? Right. So that original music never made it out, literally to this day. So, man, I want to hear it so bad. You don't understand.
How are you?
But that was the only original music we had done in high school that we never got to put out.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be 38 this year, and so I was in high school. I graduated 2001, and it was like right on the precipice of like technology being the way to make music. So I feel like I grew up in the era like I grew up with like technology driven stuff. Like, so 2001, I was recorded on like Microsoft Sound Recorder and with like a blanket over me and my dude's head, you know, like trying to make stuff, you know, holding the microphone and stuff like that. How are you guys recording those mixtapes back then?
It was an actual studio.
Nice.
We had 2 different studios we went to. It was a studio that we went to that I think 𝗲𝗲 owned it. If he didn't own it, it was his record label. But we went to that studio, and then when we met our guy that we ended up dealing with for years, he had a home studio. So it was, I mean, it was all Pro Tools, like, you know, top of the line stuff. So we was definitely spoiled for sure.
So talk about that transition from like mixtape era skip to working on project era skip. What was that like, or what was that transition like?
That's really a pivotal part of my career. Me and Woogie went strong until I think 2011. It might have been late 2010, early 2011, one of those. But in our mixtape days, like as kids, we were really ignorant in our music, like straight murder, unrealistic stuff, guns, all this stuff we didn't do and we didn't have.
Right.
So there came a point where I was like, hey, well, I don't want to rap about this stuff no more, man. So Woogie, he didn't take that well. He was like, what you mean? What you mean? This been working for us. I'm just like, man, I don't want to rap about that no more. I want to rap about, you know, my life, you know what I mean? My struggle, yada, yada. He wasn't feeling it. So I ended up leaving the group. He wasn't feeling that either, you know. Woogie was a short-tempered guy back in the day. But he wasn't feeling it, you know what I mean? We even had moments where we was kind of beefing a little bit, you know what I mean? Not too crazy, but kid beef, you know what I mean?
Right.
I went to my solo career and I was a totally different artist than people had knew me to be in high school. I was straight punchlines, raw, rap battle, skip in high school. But when I graduated, you know, a lot of people was like, man, this dude didn't change. So that's why I started Skip Saturdays, to try to give them the old Skip while I work on my albums, which is a whole different Skip, you know what I mean? Just so I could have a balance. But that transition was really rough. Personally, more than anything, it wasn't really a tough transition for me creatively. It was kind of easy, but just having to deal with losing a friend for that little moment in time and, you know, having to readjust my fan base and all that good stuff. You know what I mean? That transition was kind of rough on a personal level, but I felt like it was necessary for me to be able to, you know, the therapeutic thing we talked about. I was going through a lot of stuff, and like I said, I was homeless before I even graduated, and I wanted to talk about that kind of stuff in my music. I didn't want to keep rapping about all this unrealistic stuff that wasn't making me no better as a person. So that's how that whole struggle rap stuff started with me. You know, just going through the struggle and wanting to talk about it. Yeah.
You mentioned a little bit, it kind of was a kind of hard to kind of rebrand yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Am I remembering correctly that you like stopped cursing completely in your raps and stuff like that too?
Yeah, in 2013, I got with a manager, and he just didn't allow cursing on his label. Back then, I was so eager for validation and for somebody to believe in me and, you know, work with me, that I was willing to do whatever just to work with somebody, have some kind of representation. And on his management label, he just didn't allow cussing. And initially, I was like, I can do that. That's easy. You know, I'm real good. You know what I mean? I can write a rap without cussing. Right. And it didn't bother me at first, but over the years, man, I just felt like I want to cuss, man. Like I want to express myself. I want to express myself however I need to. And if you listen to the project, like I don't overdo it or nothing like that. You know, a lot of people overdo it. And there's some words I still won't say to this day. But I just feel like it's necessary, man, to be able to get that emotion out however you see fit and not have so many restrictions. Yeah. You know what I mean? So that was real big for me also. Yeah. I didn't cuss from 2013 to 2019.
Did you see any benefit from it?
I mean, it was much easier to get these top of the line gigs, you know, Indigo, all these corporations that wanted to support rap, they were automatically on board with me. But I feel like you can make a clean version to a song, you know what I mean? It's not necessary for you to just not to be able to cuss at all. We all grown, like, you know, cuss words are cuss words. Yeah. So that was one thing my manager always said. He was like, yeah, just think about all the licensing and syncing play. And I'm like, man, when I listen to rap, I hear cussing. I don't hear nobody not cussing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I don't think it's much of a difference. It's commendable for sure. Like, that's what's up, but it's not really making a huge difference. I'm not gonna get a record deal off of it or nothing like that. But I definitely commend his efforts, you know, just to keep rap music clean. And there's some derogatory words that I won't say to this day because of him. You know, he instilled a lot of stuff in me, and I appreciate him for all he's done. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
for sure.
That's the non-cursing element as far as when it comes to licensing and dealing with the corporate world. I do think that's an interesting area that maybe a lot of artists, especially hip hop artists, may not think of it being beneficial. And to your point, I think just having clean versions fixes that. You know, having something that you can easily shop, you know, you can fix that very, very simply. Yeah. This whole conversation, you saying this reminded me of it was like this George Carlin bit, and it was something along the lines of, he's like, well, what do you say when something happens and you just want to say fuck? You know, like, or something like that, you know, like, you're not going to say like, oh, pussy feathers, you know, like, you know, like those words are there for a reason. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, absolutely. I agree, man. I'll try not to overdo it, man, but sometimes it's necessary in my honest opinion. And I cuss like a sailor in real life. So it was just really fake. I felt fake. I was like, man, people who know me, and then like all these people who don't know me, they like, oh, you cuss when they talk to me. Oh, you cuss. I never heard you cuss before. And I'm like, man, you don't know the half, man. You don't understand.
Where'd the name Skip come from?
It's a very childish story. Back in middle school when I first started rapping, I was at the dinner table with my mom, and I'm like, okay, mom, so I'm writing this rap. Every word rhymes with flip, grip. I said, I want to make my name rhyme with these words so I can say it in the rap. And before then it was B-Dub, and then it was the Assassin, and then it was Ripper, the P.O.P. P.O.P. stood for Punchline Prince. Okay. And then I got tired of all those names. They felt corny. So I was like, I want to just come up with a simple name. And that's when we came up with Skip. And she was like, how you going to spell it? And I've always been like a over the top guy. I'm like, I don't want to spell it SKYPP. Like, it's probably already a million skips like that. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, let's spell it SKYPP. First it was SKIPP. And then I said, we can just do YPP. Right. You know, and then she said, I like that. That's different. So yeah, that's how that came about.
And after all these years, it works in the Google searches. So that's what.
Yes, it does. It does. That's one thing I really appreciate, because nobody else's names. It's one guy in he's somewhere overseas, Skip Cannabis. He's the only guy, or cannabis, however he pronounces that, but he's the only guy that's ever gave me problems with that name. The only guy, man.
I've run into issues, or I have in the past, with there's another producer out there. I don't even know if he still produces, but he goes by Lonegeveity, spelled the right way. And the main reason why I didn't want my name to be Lonegeveity way back in the day is like, it's too easy to duplicate, man. It's too easy to copy. And so it's definitely helped. It definitely helped. But at the same time, like, everybody butchers my name. So it's just what it is.
Yeah, because I ain't gonna lie. Earlier, I was trying to tag you on something, and I'm like, does he spell it wrong? And then I realized, like, okay, you got E after the N. Okay. Yeah, so I dig it though, because when you pronounce it, it's still Lonegeveity. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it stemmed from my early name was Lone, and then I went to Lonegeveity. Shouts to a group I was in like Anderson in like the mid 2000s, and he was joking one time, and he's like, "Yeah, Lonegeveity." And I was like, "Oh wait, I kind of like that." And so I kept.
It was spelled Lone, Lone.
It was just LON. And so I had the problem back then too. People would call me Lon, and I was like, I hate this. So, so it was just like, let me just throw this in there. I thought longevity would fix it, but it doesn't.
I mean, you don't understand how many people call me Skype. You don't understand. Yesterday, man, I had an interview with this guy out in Atlanta, and he was just like, before we start this interview, let me make sure Skype. I said, no, man. No, man. Skype has an E at the end, man. It's kind of self-explanatory to me, but when you never seen Skip spelled like that, I guess I can understand that.
I don't know, man. The two P's kind of give it away to being Skip, though.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's what I feel. That's what I feel. But everybody didn't pass reading class, so.
That's funny.
No, I'm joking.
You know, some people struggle with it. You know, it's all good. You know.
Yeah, it's all good, man. Please don't cancel me.
Let's see. So you work with the Night Sons, shadowing them.
Yes.
How did that relationship
that's
form?
Family. I think that happened through Chuck Mason.
Okay.
Chuck Mason's my blood cousin. That's a crazy story in itself, how we even found out we was family. But I think it was Chuck that I think Shadow was aware of me, but I think Chuck like really brought it into fruition. I think he was the one that got me out to the studio. I could be wrong, but I believe it was him. And Shadow just wanted to link with me and just, vibe out. Right. He was a fan of the work and he just wanted to check it out. So I went out there to the studio, man, and penned a verse, laid it down, and man, ever since then the relationship just grew, man. I love Shadow, man. He's a very genuine guy. Mm-hmm. Love him to death, and the relationship we got is amazing. You know what I mean? As far as how he's so helpful to artists and don't even really ask for nothing in return. Just want to help them get their business in order and help push them to the next level. So that relationship, just find another genuine person out here that worked for me. You know what I mean? It worked for me.
Yeah, I've met Shadow a handful of times. He's a very low key dude.
His name's Shadow.
But at the same time, like, he's got a very major impact on Indianapolis's hip hop. And
yeah,
I need to get him out of the shadows and have him on the show sometime, because I'd like to talk to him about his past and everything. But
and I would pay to see that. I've never witnessed Shadow do an interview. I'd pay to see that, man.
So when was this? When did you actually? I want to talk about Chuck too. Well, I guess we could talk about both. I'm curious, like, when you met Chuck. I've met Chuck a couple times, a handful of times too. But also, like when did you actually start? I guess I don't fully understand what the Night Sons are. I don't know if it's like a collective, if it's a group, if it's a production team. But I know, shouts to him too. I know he's involved. I know my dude Soul Cinematic, Jason, I know he's involved to some extent. And there's a handful of artists that you guys just are, it's kind of like just like a dope group of people, and I know it's based around Shadow, and I believe is a guy's name Warren. Am I mistaken?
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever
3B.
And I don't think I've ever met him. But can you talk a little bit about, well, one, I'm personally just interested when that relationship, like when you actually first went over there, but more so kind of like how your relationship with the Night Sons and all that has maybe helped your development as an artist. I know that's a lot, but
yeah, I think it was like 2016. I mean, me and Chuck met in had to be like 2009, 10, one of those. It's kind of a weird story. I don't know if he's comfortable with me telling this, but I'm gonna tell it anyway. So me and my little cousin, we were like really close, like family, of course. So we just really like best friends. And his big sister and Chuck were kind of like messing around, but nothing too crazy. And then one day he was just like, "Hey, I'm your cousin." And I'm like, "What? You've been messing around with your cousin this whole time?" And it was just hilarious. I was a kid, so it was hilarious. But throughout that whole time frame where he was messing with her, that's hilarious. He knew that I was trying to be a rapper. You know what I mean? So he was like feeding me instrumentals from Nappyville and Mondo Geezy, all these people. He just giving me beats like, here, you can use these to practice too. You know what I mean? And over the years, I got better, and he always was by my side. You know what I mean? Just seeing how I was doing, just seeing how I was progressing. You know, showing me his music. I'm learning from his music and yada yada. But yeah, and then over the years, he was like, man, I think you're ready. You know what I mean? He watched me build a fan base. And that's when I met Shadow, I think in like 2016. It was either 15 or 16, one of those. But Nice Sons is basically like, it's a brotherhood / music collective. But it's a brotherhood before anything. You know, you could really compare it to like a fraternity or something like that. But at the same time, it's a musical thing too. You know, you think Shadow is a Shadow. You don't know Warren. Warren is like don't exist unless you go to his studio. But yeah, man, more than anything for me, it's been a brotherhood and it's been an experience. Like Shadow took it upon himself to really just get my business in order. He turned me into a publisher. You know, he got my publishing right. He got my BMI, you know, because my manager was running all that stuff to the point where I didn't even know all my past music was under his publishing. So Shadow was like, you need your own publishing. You know what I mean? You got to get all this stuff in order for you to be your own boss. Right. Start your LLC, get you a mailing address for your LLC, a PO box, like all this stuff. He basically trained me. And, you know, as far as websites and all that stuff, like helping me get my website right. Man, he's been a major extreme help. And to this day, like he's the one who A&R'd Rhymefest being on the album. Right. You know what I mean? Rhymefest is the Nice Sons. You know what I mean? So it's a brotherhood. You know, Rhymefest reached out and he like, I wanna be on the next album. I like what you do. And that's what it's all about in Nice Sons. You know, just showing love, man, passing the love along, passing the knowledge along. You know what I mean? Just being genuine and sincere. Definitely one of the best things that's happened to me in my life.
It's great to hear. I remember I recorded something for Shadow. Man, I don't even know how long ago it was. It was like 2012 or 13. And it ended up on a project that dropped last year. And I was like, I told somebody, I forgot I even did this. Like you know, and then it was out there.
They did me the same way because they released some, I think like 2 years ago. And it was from that 2015 moment when I met them. And I was like, oh, I forgot about that. This is 4 years later. I didn't like how it sounded or nothing. I was like, can I redo
that? Was it was it something about the name of the project was something about a vault or something. I don't remember what it was, but there was like 10 MCs on the song I was on. We might even be on the same song. I don't even know. But
𝗡𝗲𝐄 I think it was the same song.
Yeah.
I believe it was 𝗡𝗲𝐄. Yep. That was a song where they was bringing in a bunch of outside artists, you know, to collaborate with that was before I was a Nice Son. So they was just bringing in artists to collaborate, you know, on that project. People they just appreciated, you know. And I was one of those people. He was one of the people. Jeremiah Stokes was one of the people. It was a lot of people.
I got a SKYPP collab and I didn't even know it. So that's what's up.
Straight up. More coming soon on that.
Future tense. Yeah. Thanks 357 Haram in the chat. Future tense 3.0. Yeah. That's what it was. Me being a producer, I'm interested in this. Do you produce it all?
I do. I have. I'm not gonna say I do, but I have. I've done it a handful of times, but never really like took it upon myself to, you know, buy a MIDI board and really get down. But it's been plenty of times where I've been in the studio and I cook up a beat from scratch, or maybe I'll add elements to something they already started cooking up. But I know my way around a keyboard for sure.
Okay. I know earlier you said that you like to write on the spot. So
yeah,
is that pretty much how all your music is made?
Yeah, about 99% of it. Well, probably about 100. But there's been times where I've brought musicians in for a whole album. Like my guy Steve Cooper, he's an amazing. He plays the EVI, which is basically an electronic valve instrument. Any horn, can be duplicated on this electrical instrument, but he can play any horn also. It's been times I've worked with him. I brought in Jared Thompson on the record with Rhyme Fest in Alice and Victoria. You know what I mean? 𝗲𝗲 the composer, like piano is an instrument and he plays that thing like nobody else in the world. So yeah, I bring in musicians when I feel like it's necessary, but more often than not, you know, I like to let producers get their shine on, you know, and I feel like a lot of them do the job good, you know, initially, and it doesn't really require any outside production. But sometimes I will bring some musicians in just because I'm that kind of guy, you know. I love music. I love all the, you know, the natural sounds and stuff like that. So sometimes I do A&R some musicians in, and that's something Shadow and they're big on that also. The
3 projects that you worked on in the last year, talk about how you created, or how I already know this because I remember when you you put the feeler out there. I think it was back in May or June, and you were like, it was something along the lines of, hey, I want to work on something, who's available type thing.
Yeah. And I do remember saying that. Yeah, that's when 𝗲𝐿𝐿 reached out. That's how that project came about. 𝗲𝐿𝐿 hit me up in private. He said, I don't want to comment on your post, man, but I'm gonna hit you up personally, you know, and just say that I always wanted to make a project with you. So that's how that came about. Nice. But I was already working on the Ghetto Mr. Rogers when I made that post. I just got tired of working alone, you know, being the only writer. So I wanted to work with somebody else. And I thought it was unique to make a project with a singer. You know what I mean? So yeah, the Ghetto Mr. Rogers came first. That's when I first met Shiny D and Jason Bain. I went out there to the studio. The plan was just to make one song, you know, collab. Boom, we made a song, you know, and share it to the world. But that first day I wrote 3 songs. And he was like, well, let's turn it to a project. Right. And I had nothing better to do, man. I just got, you know, the school had just closed. So I found myself traveling out west 3-4 times a week to cook up songs with them. And then we started building a sound. And I'm like, I want to call this the Ghetto Mr. Rogers. Like, that's something that's been on my heart heavy. Just feeling like I'm the Ghetto Mr. Rogers around here. So we did that. And then the project with 𝗲𝐿𝐿.
What do you mean by that?
Just in the streets like the next man, but not out here being reckless and irrational and overly violent and all this extra stuff. Like, really out here trying to spread love in the streets. Like, for some reason it's corny and it's soft to spread love when you're around a bunch of gangsters. But I think love is universal. I don't care how tough you think you are, man. Everybody should be able to appreciate love and be able to accept it. And the streets is a lot of traumatized and mentally unstable people. So, you know, their priorities are may be a little off sometimes. But I'm just that person that's always trying to lighten up the mood and, you know, let people know that although our circumstances have led us to these rough moments, some people really love the streets. I don't know how that happens, but I just try to let them know, like, although we got to do what we got to do, like, it's cool to be happy. You know, somewhere inside yourself, you got to find some kind of peace and happiness, or you're just going to be out here causing havoc all the time. You know what I mean? So people always look, and the non-cussing thing also played a part. People thought I was just Mr. Rogers for real. So the Ghetto Mr. Rogers, it just worked for me, man. And yeah, Jay Dick, the Quarantine 16s, that came before the albums. And that was a full-time job. Dropping the freestyle every other day with a video.
That's a work.
I got burnt out quick on that. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Series
are tough. I think the very first thing that I ever remember from you was probably Skip Saturdays.
Skip Saturdays was the.
How long did you do it
basically
for?
the shining point. I started in 2011. It was the shining point. When I was going through all that stuff in 2010, 2011, Skip Saturdays was that part that really brought joy to my heart. You know what I mean? Started in 2011. I think I ended it 2018. In the middle of that, I took a lot of breaks, you know, here and there. I probably go for like 10 weeks strong. Then I take like a 2-week break, and then I go for a month strong. Then I take a month break. You know, it was just life happening. But I reached 118 editions. Recently, I just paid my little Spotify subscription, so they put all the editions back on my SoundCloud page, and my fans love that. they was like, oh yeah, I get to go walk down memory lane. So yeah, that was dope. But yeah, Quarantine 16s was basically like the new version of Skip Saturdays, which I feel like was 10 times better. But you know, you can't relive moments like Skip Saturdays. So people definitely didn't agree with that. But yeah, that was like an amazing. We got over 500,000 streams on SoundCloud from Skip Saturdays. Like, definitely a super major thing that I did that I'm super proud of. You know what I mean?
That's dope. Now SoundCloud has it where you can. Did you see that new thing they announced where they're it's like royalty fan sharing that they're offering now?
Yeah, they got a streaming company, streaming app too or whatever. So where you can get paid like Google Play and not Google Play, that's done. But you know, yes, Pandora's and Apple Music and all that good stuff. But yeah, they trying to make strides, man. But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's my consent. The I don't know part is kind of how I feel about it. It's like
when you give away free stuff for so long, it's hard for people to take you serious after that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So do you have all these songs like J Diff's asking in the chat even he said go ahead and release that mug with all them together unless I missed it. Do you have it anywhere where people can grab all the Skip Saturday joints or the quarantine joints together if they want to?
I don't. I just put the Skip Saturdays on my website. They're available for download on SoundCloud. Quarantine 16s are available on, you know, all my social medias, but I don't have it to where they can be downloaded. That's actually a good idea. I don't know how I would do Quarantine 16s because they're videos. Yeah, but I mean, they're available for sure. Like they're available to watch. You could still
turn them into some audio files and throw all them mugs on a Bandcamp, something or other for people to grab, you know.
Yeah, I definitely got the waves and MP3s for all the Quarantine 16s and the Skip Saturdays. I got them all.
Nice.
Except for the ones that SoundCloud took down. I think it was like, it might have been like 13 editions over the years that they took down, and I wasn't able to
get it,
re-download them before they took them down. You know, our laptop had gotten stolen back in the Skip Saturday days, so I had to rely on on SoundCloud's cloud to get all those files back, and some of that stuff had got taken down for copyright infringement. Yeah, so it's about 13 editions that I'll never hear again, unfortunately. But yeah, I got a majority of them. They got like 112 of them.
That's a lot of work, man. That's a.
Who you telling?
I mean,
I was driven though, man. Like it was an honor for me, you know, just to be able to keep going on with that.
Yeah. Tell me about this. Do you ever run out of things to talk about?
That's funny you asked that, man, because I be every time I start writing, I'm like, "Do I got more to say?" Because man, I've written thousands of raps, man. I just always find something to say. I just feel like it's too much vocabulary out in this world to run out of stuff to say. Too many things that haven't been said. You know what I mean? You can say some crazy shit. As long as I got something to start a verse off, I'm good. After that, it's a breeze.
Yeah.
But nah, man, I definitely be thinking to myself, like, I'm gonna run out of words. I'm gonna run out of verses one day, but it's yet to happen. It's not even close, actually.
Yeah.
It just flows out.
I mentioned that last week a little bit when I was talking with Neek, and I was like, sometimes I feel like I just run out of things to say. And I think it's more so, I think it's just like an initial mindset, because once you're like sitting in front of something, it's easier to kind of get, once you get going, it's easier. But like shouts to Soul Cinematic. He sent me 3 tracks like a year and a half ago, maybe. And he's like, hey, I want to do an EP. And I'm like, all right, cool. And those are the last ones that I've written. And I'm still only like a track and a half in it. Like I've only written like 1 verse and 1 like chorus. I'm like, maybe I just don't have it in me anymore. I don't know. But
yeah, I like that's what Jason Banks is going through, man.
Yeah,
I know he started the same thing, man. He just ain't.
Well, I was gonna say, I know he started producing and DJing, so.
Yeah, and I'm grateful that he found that outlet, man. Because I would hate to see him not be creating at all. Yeah. But yeah, like he's the same way, bro. He just doesn't have the drive to write anything. Like he's on the new album that I'm about to release. He dropped a verse on there. I got a verse out of him.
Yeah, I heard it. Yeah, I heard it.
I mean, yeah, he's definitely not in that zone anymore.
Yeah, it's a weird place to be sometimes. I was lucky that I had production, and most people knew me for production anyway, so it was an easy creative. I can produce every day, and I'm cool. Like, I don't get producer block. Yeah. I don't get beat block like some people do, but I definitely get writer's block sometimes. But so one thing that I've definitely noticed, excuse me, ever since I've known of your music and just your artistry is that, and we've kind of touched on this a little bit, is that you're definitely very professional in the way that you conduct your business, that you release your projects. You definitely seem like you always have, your T's crossed and your I's dotted and all that stuff as far as pushing it. And you also are extremely personable. And I think that definitely helps from a standpoint of somebody that shares music. The one thing that I tell pretty much any artist that if they ever ask me for advice is, look, man, I've got to be able to like you before I can like your music. And I know you said you had management early on, and maybe that was what kind of helped you develop this how you kind of conduct your business and everything, even to this day. But a lot of it seems to just deal with your character in general. So yeah. Can you tell me just a little bit about your thought process behind, how you present your brand and yourself and your music, and how you put music out and just present yourself to the world?
Back in like 2010, 2011, even 2012, before I met my manager, I used to study the artists, the mainstream artists. I used to just watch how they talk, not in interviews, but social media. How they MySpace pages will look, how their Facebook pages will look, how professional they look, and I try to duplicate that. I've always been good with words, good pronunciation, good vocabulary, good grammar. I've always been good with that, you know what I mean? So I knew how to conduct myself professionally. But it was when I met my first manager. He is the utmost professional. If you heard him talk, he sounds like he's from Britain or somewhere. It sounds like a British fella. But it's like being able to sit around him and just watch him conduct business, you know what I mean, and see how he talks to people. Like that did a lot for me. It did a lot for my vocabulary. It did a lot for everything, you know what I mean? But even before then, like I said, I was always trying to be the most professional artist. When I did Skip Saturdays, I used to charge people to get on Skip Saturdays. And like, I never had an issue with that stuff because I always conducted it in a business manner before I even knew what that was. Mm-hmm. I just knew how to talk to people, be respectful, but also be stern in my business. And then meeting Shadow, that helped even more. But I just want to make any encounter a person has with me a breeze. I never want a person to deal with me and feel like it was a hassle or feel like it was some kind of, misunderstanding. I'm always trying to clarify stuff, be clear, be understanding and reasonable. Like that's just my personality. That's not even business at this point, so it comes natural, man. But I definitely had some guidance along the way that polished me up.
Tell me about your approach to releasing a project. What are the steps that you go through when you're like, all right, cool. The project that you're just about to drop right now, which is called, what is your new project called for everybody that's watching at home and listening in the future?
King of Indiana.
King of Indiana. All right. So with that, what was the thought process behind one, creating it, two, the idea of why you would call it such, and how intentional is calling a project King of Indiana? You're very organized, and it seems very intentional, like how you do things.
Right.
For those that may be watching that are maybe new and up and coming, kind of go through your process of how you go about, naming stuff, putting stuff together, and then planning your release. All
right. So when I made the Ghetto Mr. Rogers, I had a few boom bap records that didn't make the album, because they didn't fit the sound. So it was Top Speed, actually. He was like, hey, you should make a whole album like that, like those boom bap records. And I'm like, I've never really dove into the boom bap lane, but I could do it. You know what I mean? He was like really on me about it. Like, you should do that. I said, okay, well, if I do that, it's going to be bars. Like, I'm going to rap. And if I do that, then it's going to be a lot of shit talking. So whatever I call this, it has to be very braggadocious. It has to be something that's going to catch people's attention, and it got to match the tone of my raps, my lyrics. Right. So I called it King of Indiana. A lot of people are going to miss I'm going with that title, but I want them to, so it's okay. I'm not going to explain it or nothing. I'm just going to let them take it how they want or whatever. But and then that's where the skits came into play. I've always been a theatrical guy, like always love movies, and I wanted to make this album like a movie. So that's why I made all the skits, you know what I mean? Incorporate those with my guy Justin Bland. But yeah, I promote the album, I market the album based off the tone of the music. So this is like a very serious but lyrical tone, you know. So I made this little series called The Story Behind the Music, because you can get lost in the lyrics on this album, you know what I mean, and not understand the meaning behind these songs. Stuff like that, you know. As far as the album cover, just trying to make sure the color coordination and the message in the cover matches the tone of the music, which is why I'm burning the Confederate flag on the cover, you know what I mean? Just trying to send a message, send multiple messages before the music is even heard. But like I said, it depends on the tone of the album as far as promoting it. But one thing I always make sure I do is that I don't oversaturate the promotion, of course. And I try to make sure everything I put out as far as promotion is of quality. So I think oversaturation is probably the most important thing. It's people who will like post the album cover 5 times a day trying to promote an album, to where their social media is just full of the same cover. It looks sloppy, you know what I mean? And from my studying of mainstream artists, I've always realized that they don't post a lot. They don't have to, though, because once they put it out one time, the world's going to spread it for them. Yep. But for us, you know, I feel like we do have to put in more groundwork, but I try to get creative with that. So I don't just stick to social media. I go hang up posters. I go pass out flyers, you know, and I keep my social media clean and straight to the point. So yeah, it's all about cleanliness to me, as far as like, you know, cleanliness is professionalism, in my opinion. When people see cleanliness and they see good grammar when you're promoting your stuff, you know, they automatically think like he's a professional person, you know what I mean? So I try to keep it like that.
How do you, what's a technique that you use to not oversaturate, but also share a lot?
I actually write out a 14-day timeline for every release. Every day I say what I'm going to post. I write down what I'm going to post. Some days it's a music video. Some days it's, like I said, the story behind the music. Other days it may just be the cover. Some days it may be nothing, you know what I mean? Like, just try to make sure everything is cohesive and not redundant. So I write out a plan, you know, like on this day. That way I don't get too lost and, you know, confused, because then that'll lead to me not posting nothing for 3 days, overthinking stuff. So I think it's very critical and helpful for people to write out plans, you know what I mean? And write out schedules. You know, ain't nothing wrong with it.
Absolutely. Sharing the same piece of information over and over again is just going to get people to, you know, nowadays with the way technology is, they'll just glance over it. You know, if it's something they feel like they've already seen, they'll just stop paying attention to it. And those types of, the psychology behind how people consume is more so important now than I think it's ever been. So I think that type of information for artists or spending a decent amount of time on that, I think is really, really imperative, especially if you have a good product. Like if you have something good that you know is good, it behooves you or anybody, you know, to spend just as much time, if not twice as much, promoting it in a variety of creative ways to make sure that everybody can hear it. You know, one of my advanced students in production is working on a project, and on Thursday of this week, we spent the entire hour and a half talking about how to release a project, you know, how to do it, you know, like,
Right.
because so many people, without any type of guidance, they just don't know how to go about it. It's just like, all right, it's done. Now what? You know, so I think you diving into it a little bit there, where you said, I make a 14-day plan. I plan it out. I think that's great advice for anybody. And do you promote the same time that you're creating, or do you kind of separate it?
Yeah, I didn't say anything about this album at all until 2 weeks before 2 weeks and 3 days before the album drops, because it hasn't dropped yet. So last Thursday was the first time I said anything about this album. I didn't mention the title. I ain't even tell nobody I was working on the album. I just did it. And then once it was done, I said, hey, King of Indiana dropping in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? So nah, I don't promote in the midst of my creative process, because I've learned over time that things can change. You know what I mean? So I try not to, I try not to jump ahead too far. Just try to, wait till everything is done and set in stone before I move forward with promotions.
How do you treat nowadays in 2021? How do you treat your project after it's released?
I think that's the most important thing nowadays. It used to be about the build up, but it doesn't. The build up doesn't even matter. If I would have dropped the cover on the Wednesday before the Friday release, it probably would do just as good as it would if I built up. That's just how it is nowadays. So the post release is the most important thing to me, because once it's out there, now there's no restrictions. Now you can promote however you need to get people to go listen, because it's available. So what I do is I do a lot of visuals. You know what I mean? I do a lot of PR to get the press releases out there to let people know that it's out. Because it's hard nowadays to do press releases when the album ain't out yet, because all they got is your word. You know what I mean? They may learn a little information, but they want to hear the music just like anybody else. So yeah, post release is really important nowadays. You need visuals, you need radio interviews, you need podcast interviews, you need articles written about your album. You got to make sure your social media is cohesive with that, and it's promoting it, but not over promoting it. Like I said, yeah, that's the most important aspect now, is the post release, in my opinion.
If you could attribute your current success as an artist to any one thing, what do you think it would be? The
struggle. Like I said, I'm grateful that nothing was ever just handed to me, and I'm grateful that it's not been an easy road. But I don't think I would have gotten this far, or I would have been this passionate if it wasn't hard. Like they said, anything worth having isn't easy. So I really believe that the struggle fuels me even to this day. I'm like, man, I've accomplished a lot, but I didn't get enough out of this. Like, this ain't enough. You know what I mean? So I think the struggle and just the need to want to earn more out of it. I've invested so much and I haven't made back nearly what I've invested. You know what I mean? So just knowing that, I think that attributes to the fact that I keep going. At least my success, that's just a drive. That I'm driven by the struggle. So I think it all comes down to the struggle and just the will to do people wrong and make something of myself with this. And it's crazy because a lot of people would die to be in my shoes, man. But we just don't realize that when it's us. I've spoken to people and I tell them like, man, I don't know, man. I don't think I want to do this no more. On my worst days, I say stuff like that. And they'd be like, excuse me? Like, your face is on the side of a city bus. Like, are you serious right now?
Yeah, I can relate to that. I understand that too. And, it's a slow burn, man. It's a slow burn.
Absolutely.
And you have to have the ability to believe in yourself and what you're doing. And you really have to love it, man. And this is beyond just music. This is just everything, like if you're going to do something primarily where you are the CEO and the person that creates everything underneath it, it's so much work, man. To to just maintain. Let's talk a little bit about your project, man, your new project. This King of Indiana, do you have anything specific that you'd like to see this project reach?
Absolutely. So You for You was November 2019. First time I charted on iTunes, I went to number 33. After that, there was the Ghetto Mr. Rogers that went to number 13 on the iTunes charts. Now, in my head, I was like, how in the hell am I not on the Billboard charts? So this is one of the only things I haven't learned, and I was really ashamed. You got to be registered with SoundScan. The album does for those sales to count towards Billboard. So with King of Indiana, I made sure all that was taken care of first and foremost. So that's my number one goal with this album, is to basically do what I did on You for You and the Ghetto Mr. Rogers as far as charting. But I want this to translate to Billboard. That's my number one goal, is to hit Billboard with this album. That's my number one goal.
Awesome. And again, what I've heard, it sounds really good. Like the project does sound really good. I definitely want to be able to listen to it a little bit more. Tell me a little bit more about, a little bit of a sidebar here, because you mentioned a couple terms that I think are very interesting, that I think people should pay a little bit more attention to. You mentioned publishing, and stuff like that. You mentioned SoundScan. We talked a little bit about, SoundCloud. What is your process like as far as getting your project ready on the back end? I'm guessing you have some sort of digital distributor. I don't know. Do you go through DistroKid, your own, or something like that? Or do you go through a label? How exactly is that process for you? Is getting, once your project's done, you have the artwork, you have the music. What's it like? What steps do you go through to make sure that your music is represented the way that it needs to be, business-wise?
Yeah. Well, when I was with MeCap, which was the management label, we had a distribution deal through Catapult. But on my last two albums, I've been going through DistroKid. So what I did on it, I'll just speak about King of Indiana specifically, since this is my first one where I really had to do everything by myself. So I finished the music, artwork. First thing I did was uploaded it to DistroKid, because I needed my UPC and my ISRC numbers to register it with SoundScan. So I uploaded it to DistroKid. Then I went straight to SoundScan because I needed that done. As far as from my personal goal, I needed that done ASAP. So I registered the album. Not to
cut you off, but just to break this down, these are two completely separate. SoundScan is absolutely different than just regular distribution. So anybody who's following along at home, these are different things that you have to do. All right, sorry, continue.
SoundScan tracks your sales and your streams for Billboard. You can do however much you want to do as far as sales and streams. You can break all kind of records on iTunes or Apple Music, whatever. But if it's not with SoundScan, it's not going to count towards Billboard. Yep. So I did that secondly. Then I did Sound Exchange, which is basically radio airplay. Mm-hmm. I always do publishing last, because I feel like that's something that's retroactive anyway. So whether you do it 3 months down the line or not, they're gonna give you everything you're owed. And plus, it's a pandemic. There's no performance stuff going on anyway. Absolutely. So I did that through Songtrust, because Songtrust will take care of the rest once you do it, and it's very easy through Songtrust. So Songtrust is also like a BMI ASCAP, but instead you got to have BMI ASCAP already. But when you register through Songtrust, it'll send it to BMI ASCAP for you. And it's basically publishing for dummies. That's what it comes down to on Songtrust.
Do you own your own publishing company?
Yeah, thanks. Shout out to 𝐶𝐿𝐾, Nice Sons. He helped me set up my publishing company. Before that, I was with another publishing company that I had no idea I was with. So yeah, they was collecting all my publishing royalties.
Yeah. That's something that I learned very early on. Was, I think in 2007, I got an ASCAP card before they charged for it. And so I owned my own publishing, which splits with the artistry. And so you own the full 100% of the things that you're creating.
Yeah.
You know, a separate from splits that you might be doing with artists. So yeah. All right. Sorry. Continue.
Absolutely. But yeah, once I get my sound exchange, my sound scan, my publishing, those are like really the three main things for me. You know what I mean? Depending on who you distribute your music through, some companies will take care of some of that stuff for you as you register your album for distribution. I think TuneCore does sound scan. Publishing is pretty much got to do that by yourself. But I think Sound Exchange and Sound Scan, they come in the bundle with some distribution places. Those are my three most important things that I do, though. Aside from that, I do a lot of features that DistroKid has, like Distro Lock, which prevents people from uploading your music to like SoundClouds and stuff for people to stream for free. I'm sure I'm missing some stuff, but those are the most important things in my opinion. Get your album ready for distribution first. Take your UPC codes and your ISRC codes. Register your album with SoundScan, Sound Exchange, publishing companies, all that good stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned the thing through DistroKid. I'm guessing that's probably the same as just digital content ID, which is we utilize that through bringing down the band. So like our YouTube channel, I think I mentioned this to you, and we switched our model from being a blog to pretty much a straight YouTube channel, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. And I love the model because it allows us to upload other people's music. But as long as the artist has their content ID captured the way that you just said, the artist makes streams based upon what we upload. And that's like a perfect model for us because the goal is to be able to build our fan base and monetize and push the artist. So it's a great thing. Definitely make sure you have your content ID on because it'll protect you and it will also make you money in places that you can't even look. So
absolutely.
I appreciate you breaking that down for everybody. Do you see a lot of money in publishing? Because I honestly
really.
I don't think I've ever gotten a check more than like 20 cents ever.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the reason we don't get a lot of money from that is because we don't really report all of our performances to the publishing companies like we should.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll take a little small show, $200-$300, and we won't report it. I think that's why. But most of my money comes from distribution and merch, of course. But yeah, I do make a lot of money from distribution. I will say that.
I signed up. I think that's you mentioned Sound Exchange. I think that's retroactive as well because I realized that I wasn't actually signed up for it a couple years ago, and then they ended up sending me a check based on old music and old releases, and I was like, shoot, I completely didn't even know I was supposed to sign up for it. Like I only learned about Sound Exchange maybe like 2 or 3 years. It was actually when I was dealing with some licensing things.
Yeah, that's another thing right there.
Which I guess in that aspect, if you're going to do licensing, it does make sense to publishing can be beneficial if it gets on the airwaves.
Absolutely, yeah, very beneficial.
So
yeah, licensing and syncing, like that's a big check right there if you can crack into that industry. I just I'm about to sign on with a licensing and sync company from out of Nashville, so. That's a big check for artists nowadays, especially not being able to tour too much. And, with music streaming being a thing, you can't really sell records like you used to back in 2010 and whatnot, 2000 and all that good stuff. Right. So, yeah, you definitely want to try to get your music on these video games and movies and TV shows and stuff. There's a lot of money in that.
So is this company that you're signed up with, they're going to pitch stuff for you? Is that kind of what their goal is? So you give them the music, they pitch it? Nice. Yeah,
they don't charge any upfront fees. They just take a percentage of whatever they're able to make you. And I'm all right with that.
Did they reach out to you, or was this where you were connected and reached out to them?
Well, I hired some PR people out of Nashville, and they introduced me to these people. And the guy, he said, I heard a few things, and I think I could do something with your music. So that's how it happened.
Gotcha. Yeah, I appreciate you talking about the detail. These type of conversations on the back end of stuff is just something that I don't think gets talked about a lot in general, and kind of I think in the long run it leaves artists not making enough money from their art that they could be, and also leaving them exposed in general. So what haven't you done yet that you want to do?
Yeah, there's two things. I've done tour dates with Babyface, but I've never been on tour. I want to go on tour, and I want to hit Billboard. Those are my two major goals. A lot of people don't want record deals. I also want a record deal. I've been broke my whole life. I want somebody to spend their money. For me, I don't want to spend my money no more. So I don't care about all that loan stuff. I'm a hustler. I'm gonna get the money back, yada yada. But the two things I want is to go on tour and hit Billboard. Signing a record deal is not a necessity, but I would appreciate in advance. So yeah, those are my things right there, man. I'm surprised I haven't been on tour, man. I've done a lot of stuff.
I am too.
And I don't know why I haven't been on tour.
I feel like I feel like you would probably do well on tour too. Just with your overall mindset, the amount of knowledge that you have in promotions, the personability you have with being able to meet new people, and create new connections as you go to different city to city. I bet you would do really well with that. But yeah, I understand the record label aspect as well. I don't know, man. The older I get, I don't know if I would sign a record deal. I don't know. But then again, I do own a record label, so a lot of people, I don't know.
A lot of people would not sign record deals. A lot of people don't mess with it, but I get why, but I'm a hustler, man. I'm signing a record deal. I'm going to make the best out of that situation.
And that's
I'm
the
gonna
best
do it, man.
way to do it.
Honestly,
yeah,
I'm going to do it. I ain't going to lie.
I think as long as you understand the aspects of it, you'd probably be good. So
absolutely,
Is there anything else that you may want to talk about that we haven't talked about, or anything like that, or?
Not really, man. Just want to reiterate, King of Indiana releasing March 19th. You can pre-save it on Spotify, pre-order. Definitely want to look out for that. I appreciate you having me, man. Shout out to Nice Sons, Me Cat. Shout out to everybody, Jason Bain, Shiny D, Top Speed, Joey French, Allison Victoria, Rhymefest, Jared Thompson, all the people who helped make this project, happen. 𝗲𝗍. Shout out to everybody, man. And I'm geeked, man. We about to hit the Billboard charts. I'm claiming that. So Indianapolis, hang on. We about to take off.